Hello.
Hey, Taegan.
How's it going?
I'm a little under the weather. Not sure why, but I have a little bit of a sore throat.
Maybe you're feeling the eclipse energies that we're deeply in the midst of
It
still.
could, it could very well be that. It also could be going to my grandson's preschool for Cookie Friday.
That, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's the perfect location for that kind of thing to be around. So
Exactly. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah. Had a good day yesterday, just, kind of basking in the energy. I don't know if you could feel it, but there was like an intensity to the energy yesterday, and it wasn't necessarily in like a bad way. It wasn't like a bad intense. It was just like, oh, there's like some potent energy in the field
Interesting.
right. Yeah.
Interesting. I think it's what I've come to the conclusion is that I have a life where I can be by myself for a time. And I find like when my family comes over, we had the whole house was full yesterday. You just get immersed into it, and then you kind of when they leave, it's like, ah. And
Yeah.
I wonder if that relates to who's going to be in the ascension, who's not. And this ascension is a spiritual thing, right? It's not like physically you're going to go somewhere. But I wonder if being private, having a bubble around yourself, having built a lifestyle, building a lifestyle where you have some privacy and some time, and you're not just swept up into the roller coaster all the time. I think that has a lot to do with it, and I know I'm blessed to be able to do that, and I'm sure you have the a similar kind of a lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think that it makes a huge difference because otherwise you are just constantly in and around the energies of everybody else and kind of at the whimsy of life. But when you allow yourself that time to like sit back and have that introspective time, then you actually get the opportunity to reflect. Like we need to have both. It can't be all solitude and all isolation and whatever, however you want to phrase that. Because it's almost like we do the reflection and we do the healing in those moments of reflection, but we get to see how far we've come in the moments where we're interacting with all of these external energies, or even just getting the opportunity to have like triggers if triggers come up, because it's really easy to like feel healed when you're on your own, and then when you're interacting with other people it's like, oh no, there are some things still
Yeah, and
that
you
are.
also feel you not only the feeling that you have a lot to work on, but the feeling that you're a little bit like out of control. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Feeling like you're just on a roller coaster, like you're,
Yeah.
you know. Hold on, I turn on a light. There we go. Um, yeah, I was thinking about that. Who's going to ascend, and that video that we put up, right? I took a clip of it, and it blew up. It got like 40,000 views over the last 2 or 3 days, and people are really interested in that, like who's going to ascend. And I'm wondering if not kind of having a private space around yourself as a prerequisite, then those, I know there's a lot of people who are lost. Like I do a lot of work with parents, and there's a lot of people who are like just 24 hours a day. They don't really have time to reflect. Okay, make the most of the time you do have, carve out some time. But I wonder if that is part of it. I know, let's say the aliens don't come, let's say you're wrong, let's say it's 6 years from now, not 6 months from now, let's say all that. If you want to find inner peace, let's just look at it at that. If you want to find inner peace, you want to raise your vibratory rate. I really do believe it requires that you kind of be alone a little bit.
I think so. And I think that that's a, especially talking or speaking to parents, like I think that that's something that I see come up repeatedly in my sessions with people, is that, especially, I mean, I'm not going to blanket and just say like moms or whatever, but I work with a lot of women, and it seems to be that the kind of baseline thinking is this, or this baseline conditioning is to continually put other people's needs ahead of your own. And so there's that kind of conditioning that's in place. And so it's like there has to be this conscious redirection to like allow yourself to have space and to feel like you're allowed to create that space for yourself. And obviously it's not just women, it's like in on both sides. If we're continually exerting our energy externally and we're not bringing the attention back internally, then we're not giving ourselves the appropriate time to look at the things that are coming up, and we're kind of just on autopilot. We end up being in like our sympathetic nervous system because it's just go, go, go. There's always something to do. So we're constantly semi-activated. And then we're not, looking at the things within ourselves that aren't getting or haven't been given the appropriate amount of energy. And really it's that, like we've talked about, that clearing of space that's helping move up the vibratory rate or move us upward in level of consciousness.
Yeah, and I think you have to intentionally. Hold on one second. I'm having a technical thing here. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So I know I've been very blessed. When I had kids, just you're on the roller coaster all day long. You got to go to work, you got to pick up the kids, and then do little league and the whole thing, and then you got to go to bed, and you're exhausted, and the whole thing. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to establish a balanced rhythm. And I think one of the prerequisites for this kind of work is you do need an anchor in the morning and at night. And if you can, even if it's only for just a few minutes, like a minute is better than zero.
Yeah.
5 minutes is good. 15 minutes, maybe most people don't have 15 minutes in the morning and night. But if you can just make a few minutes of anchoring yourself in alignment and then do it again at night, and then you can latch onto that, then the rest of the day is crazy. But then you can start working on finding more peace and alignment in the day.
Yeah.
You're very advanced. I have a kind of an isolated lifestyle. I spend the majority of my time thinking about this stuff and, working on new meditations and whatnot. So we're blessed to have that. But for the people that don't, I think, and I'd like to really hear from people, is time an issue with you? And what do you do to anchor? Or are you frustrated with not being able to anchor? Because I think that's really one of the prerequisites to inner growth, right? And then also, though, having said that, there are unseen forces at work. So even though you're busy doing other things, your intention does matter. Your underlying desire to be a better human being, that does matter. Yeah, it's kind of like a mix, right?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a mix. I think that intention definitely matters, and kind of what we were saying last time about like having that structure. Like I think as long as you are consistently coming back to like the knowing of the pathway forward and what it is that you want instead of just like being completely wrapped up in the roller coaster. And one of the things that the guides have really been bringing through for me over the last couple of days, specifically over the last week, has been about acting as if. So it's like if we want to be experiencing a certain version of reality, if we want to experience a version of reality that has more time in it, that allows for us to, feel like we are allowed to take those moments for ourselves, we have to do it. Like we have to just make it a part of our reality. And then the reality shifts so that more of it is allowed. But if we are living, and it seems so counterintuitive because our human minds are like, no, we need more space, we need more time before we can implement these things. And energy says, actually, you need to implement the things before you can have more time. You need to prioritize this. You need to prioritize yourself before you can have more time. And, they've been saying it in reference to this kind of thing. And they've also been saying it in reference to like Ascension. They've been saying this in reference to healing bodily ailments. It's like you need to act like that is done. Because as long as you are continually feeding the version of reality where you aren't ascended, where you still have all of these physical issues, where you don't have time, that's the reality you're going to continue to experience. And so however it works for you to begin to act as that version of self that has all of these desires met, then it's worth it to attempt to bring those things into your reality.
Yes. And nobody's going to do it for you. No one's going to
Yeah.
wave a magic wand and give you more time. No one's going to wave a magic wand and, clean out all the junky food in your refrigerator and replace it with healthy food. That's all. It's self-reliance is what it really boils down to. But I think even if instead of thinking of it as a mountain, a minute in the morning, a minute, just a minute is better, so much better than nothing. You just got to get started with it.
Yeah. Somebody's asking, Tegan was wondering about you're saying acting as if when it comes to physical health. So the thing with physical health, and it's the same thing with everything. It's the same thing with everything from our human concept of reality. It feels like we need to be interacting with the external. It feels like we need to be interacting with the physical to change anything. And so a lot of the time we get caught up in this loop where it's like, okay, I need to be making, I mean, sure, dietary changes, maybe, you know what I mean? But like, I need to be fixing the physical to get to the root cause of this when most of the time our physical ailments, I'm going to say all of the time, our physical ailments are a result of energetic density that we are carrying. It ends up becoming manifest from the energetic through the emotional body and then into the physical body. It becomes, it moves through in terms of density. So the longer that it's existing in the energetic, the more time that it has to kind of permeate through into the physical and become manifest into the physical. So a lot of our physical ailments are actually energetic ailments. And as soon as we start to shift and release and clear out these energetic densities that are existing in our body, but really are rooted in our energetic body, then that becomes manifest into the physical. So we have to focus on clearing the energy first, and the physical is going to get a whole lot easier to clear after that.
Yeah, we in our collective meetings, what we do is we do two meditations. One is a Taoist meditation of circulating the light through the central channel that clears all obstructions and blockages over time. Just keep doing it. It kind of softens your energetic system. And then I also recommend that we do like a spinal stretch to stretch the physical ligaments so that the nerve energy and the light can the energy can flow through. But then the second one is clearing space. Literally like putting yourself through an MRI machine, and if it's not light or energy, it just gets filtered out. And that's all that's left is the light and the energy, and then you've got your energy flowing through the central channel. And the health will change if and when it's going to change.
Yeah.
You can't go into it saying, I want to fix my headaches, I want to fix my, broken foot or whatever it is. You just clear the energy out and the energy knows what to do. Your inner energy knows what to do.
Exactly, exactly, and that also goes back to the acting as if, because as soon as you have restriction or resistance internally, which is going into a thing saying, I have this ailment, I have headaches, and I want them gone. If you're going into it with that, then you're creating internal resistance around it leaving. So like having that kind of open, no expectation, just doing those practices and knowing that that is assisting you and bringing your vibration up to a higher level. Once you've reached a certain level vibrationally, you're no longer energetically aligned with physical health issues or, emotional patterns, karmic patterns. It's really about raising your vibration. And then eventually that karmic pattern because we move like up and down through vibration and through timelines and cycles cyclically, obviously. And so, when we reach up to a certain new vibration, we're up here and our karmic pattern is, down here, but we dip back down. And so we experience it over and over and over again. But then eventually we vibrate so high that we're just no longer on that energetic, our baseline is higher than those patterns, whether it be physical or emotional or energetic. And so you kind of just got to wait it out until eventually you are no longer a vibrational match to those things.
Interesting. All right. So we have, let me ask you this. You and I texted a little bit um, before the weekend, and we both wanted to talk about Egypt. So I want go ahead and tell me what because you said you've done some research on, geography, spiritual geography, energetic. Well, I won't put words in your mouth. Go ahead and explain what you've been doing and relating it to ancient Egypt. And before I say Egypt over and over again, I'm going to keep saying Egypt. It was the civilization lasted for about 3,500 years, and for the whole 3,500 years, it was known as Kemet.
Mhm.
Egypt is a late period, a Greek word that means of the Nile. So that's the
Mm.
word we use to describe them, but they were the land of Kemet or the Kemites. But I'm also going to use the word Egypt because I think that's what people understand also. So what are your thoughts on Egypt? What have you learned? Share with us what you've learned. And I've been doing my own
Yes.
research for many years on Egypt.
Okay, I'm definitely interested to hear what you have researched. A lot of what I have picked up is kind of in reference to the other things that I'm doing. So like with the Earth School stuff, which has a lot of emphasis on energetic convergence sites with like ley lines and different energy meridians of the Earth, where energy is like naturally directed through the electromagnetic grid, as well as like the directionality of certain topographical features, so such as the Nile, such as mountain ranges, such as valleys. Like there's energetic directionality based on the shape and direction of some of these features as well. Like the electromagnetic grid is kind of just based on the poles, so that's not as fluid as some of the what you would call like energy meridians, or they're sometimes called dragon lines. Those are more undulating and more fluid. So a lot of what I've picked up about Egypt is kind of in reference to that stuff, because Egypt, and specifically the location where the Great Pyramid of Giza is one of like the main earth chakras. So much like our nervous system, where where there are nerve bundles innervating at certain areas that are associated with our chakras. It's literally like we think that these are like woo-woo concepts. Like, no, there are bundles of nerves innervating at these places. And so ley lines are kind of like the nervous system of the earth. And there are certain areas where there are like additional kind of convergence in those places. So Giza is one of those areas where there is like a significant energetic convergence, which is why we would kind of call it one of the main earth chakras. So, and I think we talked a little bit about Sumeria as well in our kind of texting back and forth, as well as Egypt. And it's like all of these ancient civilizations were utilizing these ancient earth technologies. So they pretty much all had like sacred geometric shapes, pyramids, on these like energetic convergence sites that were utilized for basically like energetic purposes. So whether that be, I think in like more ancient Egypt, this would have been like free energy. I think things shifted closer to the end of the Egyptian, I mean like what we would consider like ancient Egypt civilization. But one of the main things that has come through about Egypt is like it's pretty much like a direct channel from like Atlantean information and Atlantean technology to Egypt. I've even seen, it's really interesting when I'm like tapping into Atlantis and I'm kind of like looking at the buildings. There were a couple buildings and a couple temples that have the same like headdress that the pharaohs did. It was really interesting because Atlantean buildings, they're made of like higher vibrational material. Like they kind of look like light, like they're crystalline or something. They look bright. Definitely different than our architecture. But one of the temples that I was looking at when I was kind of tapping into the Akashic records of Egypt like a long time ago was that they had that same headdress. So to me, it was like, okay, there's like a direct correlation here between these civilizations, the information that's being brought down. I believe that there was probably some individuals that like survived the fall of Atlantis that like brought information down, or they received the same information through connection with guides or star beings or something along those lines that precipitated the kind of direct lineage that it did. And there was a lot of like, they've shown me like underground chambers underneath the Sphinx. And it seems like when I'm like going back, because I think that it goes back further than we think that it does. Because I think that ancient Egypt, they say that it's like what, like 3,500 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
Or
25 to
before.
3700 BC. Yeah.
And Atlantis would have been like 10 to 12,000 BC.
Right.
So there's like there's a period of time there where supposedly there's nothing in the middle, which I'm not 100% sure. I feel like it maybe moves it. Ancient Egypt goes back a little bit further than we think that it does. But yeah, the chambers underneath the Sphinx I've seen have like a direct correlation to like the energy convergence. Like it almost looks like it's like a power room or something along those lines, or like a energy. It's hard to pinpoint it down specifically, but I think that they were utilizing those earth-based energies for a variety of purposes, using sacred geometry for like appropriate energy conduction. I think that they had way more information, at least in like the further back kind of ancient Egypt, than we do. I mean, obviously, like if you're looking at the building of the pyramids, there's like they had a lot of information that we didn't necessarily have. And a lot of that was based in this like use of energy where I've actually seen them be able to levitate things using the free energy, but I think that they like lost the access to the information over time. And so it stopped being utilized, but the more ancient Egypt was utilizing all of these technologies much in the same way that like Atlantis was. Not quite, but pretty close.
Hmm. So my knowledge of Egypt, some of that tracks, a lot of that tracks with what I know. So about 3,500 BC, Egypt was two. There was the Upper Nile and the Lower Nile. They were two separate groups of people. I believe they received interdimensional contact right around that time, King Narmer, because what he did. I also knowing about Samaria. So let me go backwards. So about 800 years before King Narmer in Egypt, uh, it's pretty clear to me that interdimensional knowledge was given to the Sumerians. We know this because they kept everything they said was thank you for all this interdimensional knowledge you've given us. They just went on and on and on about it. And I think that the interdimensional beings maybe got too involved in the Sumerian society and made themselves kings and played around like these people were pawns. And I think they did a refresh in Egypt. They found another
Right.
civilization, another society where they gave the same information, but they didn't. They stayed on. They just let the people do it more themselves. Kind of like what I hear is going to happen next. They're going to give us this information and let us figure it out. They're not really going to get physically involved. And so, right around that time is when King Narmer united the two tribes. But I believe that he was given advanced information both and less I'm less know I know less about the technology than I do about the societal growth. And Egypt flourished they have a 3,500 year history. And I also know about 1,700 years, so about halfway through this, they were an enlightened society, and they lost their enlightenment through
Mhm.
changes in leadership or whatever. They just didn't. They had the same words, the same gods, which weren't really gods. They were principles that they lived by. So they had all the same knowledge, or the same outer knowledge, but they lost the enlightened knowledge. And the enlightenment, my opinion, in Egypt, this is not my opinion. The Enlightenment, this is a fact. The Enlightenment of Egypt, or the first 1,700 years, was built around the principle of Ma'at, M-A apostrophe A-T. And Ma'at means like the source, the way things are, the flow. In Sumeria, they called it Me, the flow, the way things are. And it's that same knowledge. And what it really means, it translates into just being a good person, being kind, being generous, helping people that need help. Working together as a collective, working together, towards the common good. And so from king to commoner in ancient Egypt, they revolved their whole society around Ma'at. Obviously, very successful. They lasted 3,500 years. And when you learn about Ma'at, yeah, being a good person, that makes sense. Why don't we do that? Why can't we do? Why isn't our government like that? Why isn't our world like that? It'd be better if it was. Well, what happened is when they lost their enlightenment, so about 1,700 years through the halfway through their history, the 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 priests kind of took over, and now we'll bless your crops, we'll bless your marriage, we'll bless your kids, we'll bless everything. And so the priests made money like that because there are many gods now. And about 150 years after that break, there was the knowledge, the ancient knowledge was still taught to the pharaoh and his family and high society people. And one of the people who heard this was a young prince, and he was so enamored with this thing, Mott. Like, yes, just be a good person, go with source, be fair to people, be nice to people. That's how, why don't we run our country like that anymore? And so anyway, when he became pharaoh, he resurrected this idea of Mott and truth and source and put it on all the obelisks and everything. He was pharaoh for about 17 or 18 years. And then when he died, the priest, his son, was only 7 or 8 years old at the time. So the priests took back over and said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And they went back to the way it was. Had we not found this little kid's tomb, so this little kid was pharaoh from the time he was 8 till he was about 18, then he died. That was King Tut,
Oh,
Tutankhamun.
wow.
And his father was a man by the name of Akhenaten. Aten means the sun, Amen means the bull. So he changed his name from Amen to Akhenaten, the sun. And he brought back the religion or brought back this spirituality, but it was then immediately squashed. And had that tomb never been found, we would never know about Akhenaten, and we'd never know about his wife, who's also famous, Nefertiti. And we never would have known. So anyway, the Mott was the way of Egypt for half the time, and then for 150 years it was buried, and then Akhenaten brought it out for about 20 years, then it was buried again. So fast forward about 75 years, another prince in the Pharaoh's household, his name was Moses, he also was taught this Mott. He said, well, why wouldn't, if you hear it, you say, why wouldn't you do it? Yeah, that's better than what we do. Let's just do that. Having known the story of Akhenaten, he decided to take people out and form his own utopian society based on Mott. But the people he took out were illiterate desert people, and they didn't understand what he was trying to get across. So he said, all right, you guys are not understanding what I'm saying. Let me say it a different way. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, because this violates the Mott. This violates the source, the flow. So don't do these things. And most people don't realize in Judaism, there's not just 10 commandments, there's about 450 commandments. Women
Oh,
can't
wow.
do this, kids can't do this, all the things you're not allowed to do. And so that it's kind of like the anti-Mott. It's like saying you should be a good person, but instead of just being a good person because you want to flow with that nature, be a good person based on guilt, shame, and fear of what's going to
Yeah.
happen to you if you don't do these things. So the whole thing got inverted. Fast forward again to Jesus, the three wise men. I'm sure one of the wise men was from Egypt because the Egyptians are the ones who gave the Greeks all their knowledge and all their mathematics and all that. And Jesus said, well, yeah, why don't we do that? Yeah, like Judaism is all backwards. It's all about what you're not supposed to do. And then in some of the gospels, he talked, be kind to the kids, be nice, be generous, be kind. And he wanted to bring that out again. And that's what I think happened. And then also and I didn't know this until fairly recently. If you read the Ethiopian Bible, there are 22 books that were rejected by the Roman Catholic, or
Mhm.
the powerful church. They rejected these 22 books, and many of them are. Jesus was a hands-on guy. He said specifically, "This is what my church is going to be. We're going to not do anything on Sunday. We're going to be kind. We're going to be all these things, a liturgy." And he wrote all this out, which is how the Ethiopian church is built, based on that. But what he said was, and this is the key, he said, if you're in power or authority in my religion, you have twice the responsibility to be a good person.
Mm.
It's
Oh, wow.
twice the burden on you to follow these commandments of being kind and being generous and being thoughtful and helping people that need help. Twice the burden. And so that's what I think that kind of explains our three-dimensional history. So me personally, Judaism, Christianity, which is built on top of Judaism. And what I'm noticing now is a lot of Christians quote the Old Testament a lot more than they quote the New Testament anymore. And then Islam, which accepts both of those as true, I just swipe them left as unenlightened. They were an attempt to recreate an enlightened society, an enlightened principle.
Right. Yeah, that
That's
makes
what
sense.
that's what I know. And probably 90% of that is fact, and 10% of that is I think.
That's very interesting. I like that. I like the inverted back to, trying to be non-inverted and the kind of just like human fallacy along the way. I mean, like if we're speaking with about like Jesus and like the New Testament and stuff. That all of that is very much exactly what we're talking about. It's very much like, okay, we are going to turn internal and you're going to take away all of the things that are not going to allow you into the kingdom of heaven, which is your source consciousness that exists within you and inside of you. Everybody has access to that same vibrational energy. You don't have to, it's nothing that is existing outside of you. It has only ever existed inside of you. And I think, valiant attempts in getting us to like look at those things over the years. But I read at least parts of the Bible for the first time a couple of years ago, and I was like laughing through the whole thing, only with like the parts about like for those with ears, let them hear. And I'm just like, yeah, man, like people just aren't gonna get it until they're ready to get it. And so it's like, it doesn't matter if you're speaking plainly or you're speaking in parables, like people aren't gonna be able to receive it until it's their time to receive it. And that's why, that's why it's taken thousands of years to kind of get us back into like a collective frequency that is at the vibrational rate that we can actually begin to be receptive to some of these to these ideas in ways that aren't immediately externalized again, where we can actually hear that and be like, okay, no, we need to go in here. It's not out there. It's not out there. It's in here. Yeah.
So what I've done, so I've been, sitting with all this for many, many years. And so what I've done is I created the Utopia Collective, and anybody who's interested in that, just the first link on my profile there, you'll get the newsletter. And the Utopia Collective is built on Mott. It's built on, number one, people who want to be better people, who want to flow, underneath the universe, there is this rhythm and source. And if you want to flow with that, by all means do that. Another way I say it is like from the 10th dimension all the way to the fourth dimension, the universe is perfectly aligned. Then we go into the third dimension and make a hard left turn. But in the back of our mind, we go, this doesn't make sense. I feel like there should be alignment. It's part of you. But the more you bury yourself in this third dimensional stuff. So the Utopia Collective is a higher dimensional organization, where people who want to align with this can align with it. And then as an organization, once we get a group of people who are aligned, we can then focus on just being a healing source and being kind of an umbrella. Hey, if you need help, one of the big things that I personally want to work on is bringing healing to parents and helping them, create a calm and peaceful alignment in their home. But in answer to your question there, I saw it go by about books. I have two books. Number one is the collective, is the Utopia Collective, but I have two books here, so I'm going to be in commercial mode. The Cycle of Mind is a 2018 book, and this book wasn't thinking about ascension. I was thinking simply about modifying self-transformation and how the subconscious mind works. It's a fascinating book. This book, The Cycle of Mind, I said it last week, I'll say it again. We're going through life with like a mountain of subconscious that we're not aware of. And what this book does, The Cycle of Mind, is it disrupts that and it kind of puts the brakes on, and you actually can see the mountain keep going, and you're separate from the mountain. You're not that subconscious. That's not true. That's only what you've believed. You don't have to be that way. But that's step one, is to kind of wake yourself up. And step two is, now that you're realized that I don't have to be that way. For example, I don't have to be that parent anymore. I can be a better parent. I don't have to be unhealthy anymore. I can be healthy. I don't have to make excuses for everything. I can simply do it, right? But now that you see this, the next step, and if you don't take this step, you're going to get lost again. You can now start to look at all the parts of your life with fresh eyes. So you can look at your health with fresh eyes, not what you've done in the past, but what you want to do. Being a parent, your spiritual practice, you can start to look at these things and rebuild yourself as an adult, rather than carry this mountain of childhood trauma and fear and belief that you've had. So that's The Cycle of Mind. And another book I just put out on Amazon about 3 weeks ago is Meditation for Life. There's 4 guided meditations in here. Each guided meditation is designed to open up like another access. What happened for me, and you're a part of it, Taegan, whether you realize it or not, what happened for me was I had always studied enlightenment. So I've studied six different enlightenment systems, including the Egyptian system. And for me, enlightenment was just a very flat thing. Empty, separate yourself, enlighten, don't think any thoughts. And I've been studying that for a long time. Then, boom, this whole ascension thing hit me in my TikTok feed. And oh, it turned the whole thing into like, oh, I get it. It's not a flat thing. Enlightenment isn't a flat thing. It's a journey and to
Mhm.
higher dimensions. And so, yeah, so it's been an eye-opening thing for me personally over the last 7 or 8 months to include ascension in my own journey instead of just studying these texts and trying to master the meditations and whatnot, to really understand that there's more to it than just escaping this dimension, or just kind of what's the word, escaping reincarnation, moving beyond that so you don't have to reincarnate again. It's more than that. It's about ascension. It's about waking up these higher abilities that we have.
100%. And like moving through the cycles of life and across lifetimes, just on it, like from the soul perspective, it's for the joy of the experience. It's literally like we want to get to know ourselves at our basic function. We want to know what this aspect of source is like at its most basic function and get to experience the up leveling through that. And that's why we've signed up for it to not be like a point A to point B. It's like we go back and forth through all these cycles over and over again across, and like we have gone through this over and over again across many lifetimes. And that's just for the joy of getting to be like, oh, I got a little bit higher this time. It's not because we're, stuck in a trap. I really do believe that the soul could choose to just not incarnate on earth again if it desired to. But as soon as we get out of this body, we're like, oh, I did better in this way this time, but I didn't do it in this way. So let me try again. Let me try again. I can do it better. I can do it better this time. Let me back. And like that's the energy. It's much more based in this, like it's all fun. And I think like that's the point that we end up getting to, like on this journey as well, where it's like I think we do and we can start out pretty much like, okay, things are not great. So let me try and implement some of these things that I think that are going to make my like life experience more positive, which is like oftentimes what brings people to meditation. It's what brings people to these practices, because they're like, I feel stuck in whatever way this is. This doesn't feel good. This is uncomfortable. So let me try and move towards something that's going to feel a little bit more comfortable. And as we do that, then you reach a certain point in the ascension process where you're like, oh, I'm there, with enlightenment as like an end goal. It's like, actually, that's not even the goalpost. You just keep going. You just keep going. Like, even if your consciousness ascends to like a fifth dimensional level, like that's not the end. There's always more layers to take off until you just merge back with source. There's so many dimensional planes that you can continue to move upward through. And so it's like, yeah, that's like, this is a milestone. It's totally a milestone because it's an extreme pivot in our perspective and our level of consciousness. But yeah, like once we realize that, like, oh no, it's just this continual process of expanding and letting go and releasing, then I think that that's like the point that you allow yourself to have a little bit more fun with it. You allow yourself to be a little bit more human. You have a little bit more compassion for yourself, and you're like, it doesn't need to be point A to B. You don't need to have so much like, it doesn't need to be so hard, because I think we can be really hard on ourselves, especially with some of these practices. Like that's what I've noticed in myself and with other people. It's like, okay, if I'm not hitting all of these goals, if I'm not, doing all these practices constantly, then I'm, not propelling myself forward in consciousness enough. But I think that it's always a balance. Like we obviously need to be doing these practices to bring ourselves into a higher state of consciousness, and simultaneously, it's like we are in a human body for a reason. We came here to experience this reality for a reason, and so you're allowed to enjoy the human experience without like constantly feeling like you need to be doing something that's rooted in productivity or rooted in healing or something along those lines, because otherwise why take on the incarnation?
I think that people are stressed and afraid and worried and unhealthy because we're surrounded by a society that's stressed and afraid and worried and unhealthy. And I think that doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Like I believe we can change through a collective, we can change structures. For example, if you grew up in Egypt, 5,000 years ago, you would have learned enlightened things. If you grew up in Kashmir, 1,200 years ago, you'd have been part of a group. Your parents would be singing and dancing and having a great time. They'd be enlightened. You'd feel the pulsation of the universe. That would be something you would be taught. But we're taught the opposite. We're taught from a fear-based model, and I think it's unnecessary. That's the way I feel about it. Like since I was a kid, like why is this so hard? Like why are people so mean to each other? I guess I
Yeah.
grew up with Mott in my head, like why are we not nice to each other? Like why can't we just help each other? And the more you think why can't we do that, the more you see that's not what's happening. So I wanted to create, this is probably my fourth swing at it, a group where, in this case, the Utopia Collective, where we're just helping you. We're not trying to push you down. So I feel, make you fail. That's what teaching is. Like people say, like, what's the right way to meditate? Well, if there's a right way to meditate, then the teacher has all the power. And you're
Hmm.
never ever going to be that good because there's a right way, and all you're thinking about is how you're not doing it right. We have to enable people and create a structure where people can flourish and show them higher dimensional ways of thinking and show them higher dimensional meditations and get them in a culture where there isn't fear and pressure and power pushing you down. It's enabling you, and then together we can, enable more people. Like I always say, the more people who ascend, the more people can ascend. It just gets easier because these people have set a pattern. But the pattern that we're in now is we're fighting against a system that blocks us from ascension, blocks us from our own inner experience. And it doesn't have to be that way. This was my real point, because there have been times on Earth where there have been enlightened societies. So we're an enlightened collective, and we're a small group. But if you're in it now, you're part of it, and you can help grow it. And the world doesn't have to be negative all the time. That's my point.
100%. And I think, yeah, there's like the individuals that obviously a lot of people are still very directly and kind of intrinsically connected with the systems that we currently have in place. And I think that it can feel really difficult to even like see outside of that when you're constantly having to go to a job that, drains you, or like you have family members that are very rooted in these old systems and old beliefs. But it's kind of goes back to, like, I completely agree, like it doesn't need to be like that. Even if you feel like you're kind of stuck in it, it doesn't need to be like that. It really is just about where are you placing your attention. And that's why groups like the one that you have are so positive, because it just allows for a perspective shift so that individuals can bring in more of the energy that they are looking for. And that's really all, that's the inception point. That's the seed that needs to be planted. It's like, it can be different. And where can I plant those things in my life? Those slight shifts in energy, even if the majority of my life continues to have, things that don't feel super aligned. Where can I plant the seeds of the things that do feel aligned? How can I implement, a little bit of time each day to water that seed? And even if you don't see growth in that area initially, you will eventually. It's
Because
like
you've
the,
activated unseen forces. Every
yeah,
time you're doing something, you're activating unseen forces, and expecting a result, as you say, is setting up resistance. You just do it, it activates unseen forces, and those forces respond when they will, if they will, as they will.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's just like the seed analogy. Like if you're planting a seed under the soil, sometimes it takes a week or two before you start to see the little shoot up, and then maybe it's like you see once that shoot is above ground, then you see like incremental growth. It really depends, but as long as you are continually showing up and consistently showing up, even with just intention, then it's like you have activated those unseen forces, like you said.
Yeah, and we're always activating unseen forces. Everything, every projection, every thought, every word we speak, every action, every intention we're activating unseen forces. And if you're unaligned, you're just getting yourself, wrapped more and more and more around the axle, and it's going to take you longer and longer to unwind.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Where I struggle is I recognize two things. I have just this urge or a calling to create a group, to create like a structure, but that counterbalances with what else I know is that forget that and just work on myself, and everything's going to be okay for everybody. And why do I have to be the one that sets up the group? Because frankly, as you know, being a creator, trying to start a business, the whole thing, it draws you out of balance. It takes you out of your own balance. Where I could be meditating and balancing and working out all day, I'm spending time editing videos and trying to convince people to do things. And so I always struggle between. Here's how I always felt. Like always felt, what's the point of me being enlightened? Like, what is the point? There's no one to talk to, right? I'd like to like drop down a rope and say, hey, come on up here so we can have a conversation up here. And why only two people? Why not three people? Why not 3,000? Why not 3 million? We'd have a much better life. My life would be a lot better, and the world would be better because now we would
Yeah.
all be together in a group. So I struggle between this personal work and why do I, why don't I just get better at that instead of always trying to help other people? And so I struggle, and you might have the same thing, where when you help people, you're not just lowering your energy, you're just spending energy on something which isn't ascension. It's not your own inner work. How do you feel about that?
It's a great question. Because I think like an interesting way to kind of like think about that is like, okay, so if you chose to just do personal work, where you're just working out, where you're just only feeding energy into yourself, there's gonna be another part of you that's like, that knows that you have a role and purpose to play that you would be ignoring. And so it really is about like finding this sense of balance between these two things because for sure when you are showing up in this role, when you're trying to show up in a leadership role, you're trying to operate your practice or your business, then there is a lot of energy expenditure that's happening. But I think part of the journey in showing up in this way, because I do think that it is a destined thing, like there are individuals that feel called to lead. And I always say like empowered leaders empower leaders, which is, that's the role that some of us come here to play. And it's exactly what you were just saying with like bringing the rope down into the collective. Like I don't want to be in the first wave of ascension by myself. Like, I don't want to shift until the collective shifts because I want to make sure as many people as possible are coming with me. And I know that you feel the same way. And there are people that feel that way. And and the reason that we have taken on this role is because we feel that way. We don't want to be like isolated in our growth. And there is an intrinsic understanding that there's never an ability to be isolated anyway. We are part of a collective whole, which is part of why there's this pull to like, get the collective on board with us because we're not just alone, even if we are doing, personal practices. And so I think that it is really finding a balance, and not only balance, but fun and play in the work because it can't be just like energetic exertion. And this is genuinely like one of the biggest lessons that I have had in this lifetime because I work very hard and I work a lot. But like having to make sure that I'm like paying attention to when my body's like, you need to chill, and like actually listening when the body is telling me that I need to chill, and making sure that like, because if you are putting out work and you are showing up in your role from a place of resistance, it's not going to have as much of an impact also. So it's like you can't be, showing up and doing this work from a place of like, oh, this feels like a chore. Because the reality is it's not. It's an absolute fucking joy. Like, it's like I would
Privilege. It's a
like,
privilege to
it
be
is
alive and to be able to
an
help people.
honor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The way I feel
100%.
about it is it's a lot of effort, and it does get me out of balance, and sometimes I get frustrated and why didn't this happen? Why didn't that happen? So you have all these feelings and emotions. On the other hand, I'm projecting this effort in a completely aligned way, which is aligned with what I want to do. And as opposed to going to a job that is not motivating, not interesting, drains the life out of me, putting in the same amount of work, why not put in the work here? Because, Alan, you dummy, it doesn't matter what you do on the third dimension. Everything's going to be fine. Everybody's going to be just fine with you, without you. So I have this constant like inner battle. Like, is it really worth it? But I feel like if you just help one person, like that lightens me up. I feel fantastic when someone, reads one of my books or says, "Oh my God, this was so helpful." Bing, bing, bing. You get all this dopamine and all this great feeling, and it's a great thing.
100%. And to go off what you were saying there too, it's like everybody is going to be fine, and everybody will either ascend or they won't, and that's okay, and that's honestly chosen before incarnation, and it's not a big deal. It's just mapped. It's the flow of the universe. It's divine order, right? So um with that being said, though, like, we all play roles for one another. And so it's like the intuitive pull that you feel to show up in a certain way is helping people ascend. It is, there are certain, and this is for everybody that's listening to this, if you feel called to share yourself in a certain way, there are individuals that are basically like signed up already to experience what it is that you have to share. We have pre-incarnation signed up to play these roles. And so does that mean, if you choose for whatever reason not to follow that intuitive pull, that there won't be another, version of that message being given, individuals are able to receive that message? Yes, they will still be able to receive that message in some way, but there is purpose behind all of these aligned choices and all of these aligned actions. And if you have something to share, share it, because there are people that want to receive what you have to share and that are aligned for you to have to share. And it is this, symbiotic sharing that really allows us to deepen into connection with ourselves and with each other, which assists in this like collective ascension. A lot faster and with a lot more ease, because a big part of it is recognizing the fact that we are part of a collective consciousness and we're not separate from one another.
Yeah, I figure if we're going to be here, like you said, you got to have fun. You have to enjoy it. You have to feel the whole flow of the whole universe flowing through you. That's fun, but why not make the world around you better?
Yeah.
Why would you not want your kids to have a better life? Why wouldn't you want, you're here, so let's make it pretty and beautiful and healthy and happy for everybody instead of unhappy and fear-based. And I feel like I've become a rescue squad, like trying to rescue people who don't realize how deeply unhappy and stressed and fear-based this world really is. And yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I don't really depend on the third dimensional world a lot anymore. But not everyone's in that situation. And I just kind of want to
Yeah.
create a conduit, as you do. You want to create a conduit that people can, you know, ascend, become enlightened, become awakened, become more of who they are, as you say.
Yeah. And like you said, like, a lot of people don't realize like how deeply entrenched in some of those things they actually are until you encounter messages like this, or encounter, life experiences that are presenting similar energies or messages. Because, yeah, our programming is basically to be activated constantly, to be like in your fight or flight constantly, to be distracted, to like numb yourself, to avoid, to not pay too much attention to your own needs. Like, there's so much within our current programming that is so oppositional to what we need to be doing to like move forward in positive ways. So yeah, it's absolutely essential to have these kind of channels of energy. And I feel for the, like, because you're right, like, I feel very privileged to not have to interact with the 3D world too much at this point. Like, I quit my 3D job like 2 years ago at this point and have not looked back a day in my life. And like, I feel for the individuals that are still having to show up in that way, because it's draining. It is so draining to like to have to continue to exist,
You have to live two
especially.
lives, right? You have to live two lives. You live this life that's just unfulfilling and unmotivating, And then you also have to have the discipline to live a separate life until you don't have to live that lower life anymore.
Exactly. And if you're like doing these practices and you're consciously bringing awareness to what feels in alignment for you versus what feels out of alignment for you, and then you have to continue to show up to the situation that feels out of alignment day after day, like, yeah, that's gonna weigh you down. It's not gonna feel very good. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so it's implementing those practices that will allow you to have more of that energy, more of the time. And then eventually, and this is the beautiful thing about acting from a place of alignment, is that the opportunities to continue to act from a place of alignment will show themselves to you. The pathway forward will continue. You're not meant to live in an unaligned situation for the rest of your life. You might have to implement certain practices to bring yourself into the frequency of alignment so that you're able to create and manifest from that place of alignment, but you don't need to continue to feed energy into that forever. Eventually, there will be a different path forward.
Yep. All right. Commercial. My guest here, well, you're not a guest anymore. You're a co-host now. You got promoted. So
Yay.
Taegan Gaetz, channeler. So anyone who's following me, thank you so much, but you're only following me. If you want to follow Taegan, can someone please write, or maybe Taegan, you can type in
I'll
your
type.
handle, your TikTok handle. Um, for those of you that are resonating with this type of content, this type of message, make sure you're following both of us. I also want to point out in the links in my bio, you can join the Utopia Collective simply by signing up for the newsletter, and then you'll be invited to some private sessions. Also, the books that I mentioned are also in the links in the bio. But we love you, and I think it's fantastic. I want to do a meditation, but before I do the meditation, I want to briefly say the origin of it and then kind of ask you a couple of questions to get it
Okay.
clearer. We did, we've done, this is our third session together, and I put up a video 48 hours ago that now has 40,000 plus views. And that video was about who's going to ascend and the different cores. And what you said in there, aside from, how many numbers of people and whatnot, you also said that the people who are going to ascend are the people who have established some inner alignment. And I want to just tease that out a little bit in
Yeah.
terms of what that means, because then I want to do a meditation. We talked about act as if. I want to do an energetic meditation where we embrace that ascension. But tell me more about the alignment, giving up fears, giving up alignment. Yeah.
So I think there's a couple of ways that I want to come at this. So the internal alignment is like there's like an incremental process that's happening and is going to continue to happen on the way to these waves of ascension and the collective shift. So looking at our patterns plainly, I think, is number one. The individuals that, when faced with some of life's external circumstances or internal energies that are really uncomfortable, that have a more difficult time in being able to like accept those things or surrender into them. Like the eventual goal is that you are able to find some kind of surrender. You're able to let go of some of these fears. And at the very, baseline, at least be aware. Being aware of our patterns is the baseline. Being able to, know in truth that these are some of the things that you continue to hold on to. And but the incremental process of alignment is, in your day to day, recognizing what serves you versus what doesn't. And the idea of aligned versus unaligned is intricately connected to karma, or our idea of karma. So all that karma is the ability to make an unaligned choice. As we move forward into and through the ascension point, or through the collective shift in consciousness, we lessen and lessen the ability to make an unaligned choice. As our consciousness moves upward, we see clearer and clearer, like what is in authentic alignment with our soul, with our core energy, what feels right to us. And it just makes less and less sense to make unaligned choices. Our vibration is no longer energetically matched with making those unaligned choices. And so the reason that we are free of karma is that we're just not able, and it's not that we're not able to make unaligned choices, but we just wouldn't anymore. It just doesn't make sense to us anymore to make choices that aren't in alignment with our authenticity, with who we are, with what we feel is right. And that is what alignment means. It's like, it's what makes us feel expansive. It's what gives us energy. It feels exciting.
Sorry.
Whereas unaligned choices feel very contractive. They feel tiring. They feel draining. They feel fatiguing. They feel they give you anxiety. They keep you up at night. Like those are the things in our life that feel unaligned. And so as we continue to move forward, and again, this isn't something to put like a ton of pressure on yourself with. Like life does a really, really good job of continually bringing these things back into your life so that you have opportunity to make different choices on the way. But it's the individuals that, when faced with the crossroads that life provides for you, are able to see like, this pattern that I've been playing into, this life circumstance doesn't feel good anymore. And there is this other pathway forward that does feel good. And so it's this continual process of paying attention to what feels good versus not good, what feels like a yes versus a no in your body, and continually making the choices toward what feels like a yes, because that ascension point is the point of like no return in terms of like being able to make those choices that aren't in alignment anymore.
Now, this ascension that we're talking about is a spiritual ascension, an inner ascension, right? We're not going anywhere. We're not going to have the same bank account, same car, same house, same wife, same husband, same kids. We're not going anywhere. It's a spiritual ascension. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that triggers a fear in people. Like,
Right.
I want to ascend. That sounds like a great thing, but then when it actually would happen, whoa, I'm not ready for
So
that.
it is a spiritual ascension in that it is precursed by internal shifts. It is your perspective changes. Like I think like that's a really good it's good to kind of say what I mean when I say like increasing level of consciousness, because it's like, what the fuck does that mean? Excuse my language, but it's like, what does that mean? And it's like it shifts in your perception. Your perception shifts to encompass more of the truth of reality. And so you'll notice these up levelings in consciousness when you are looking back at life and you're looking and saying like, okay, this pattern that I used to play into, I no longer play into it because something in my perception has shifted. And so that is what it kind of feels like incrementally. But as we're moving up and up and up toward like, a 5D level of consciousness, a fifth dimensional level of consciousness is based in unconditional love. It's based in knowing yourself to be part of the collective whole. And it's based in feeling and acting in from your highest form of authenticity. And so you're no longer operating or allowing that, like whatever patterns or wounding that were in there, to be behind the wheel at all. It's like you are acting from, you might have memories of them and you can still like acknowledge them, but you no longer act from that place. You're acting from your highest authenticity with no facade. And so that, of course, is a very, that's a spiritual ascension. That is changes in your perception. And that's when I'm talking about the first, second, third waves, that's what people are anchoring into in those waves. So there are these big up levelings in consciousness that allow people to anchor into that level of consciousness in the three waves that I described. So November, December this year, March to April of next year, and then around September next year. And then we have the collective shift. So when we have enough individuals that are at that baseline, then we basically reach a tipping point, and the entire Earth collective shifts into the next dimensional plane. So when we're talking about, shifting into the next dimensional plane, we still interact with reality in the same way, but we are on a dimensional plane that we don't currently have access to. And so it's not that we're going to a completely new place, but our perception of reality is so different that we are creating reality from a very different place. Because right now we're creating reality from a place of limitation. And so it expands what reality is almost to the point that we don't have the ability to really kind of conceptualize that right now. But it is, our physical reality ends up feeling and looking different, but it's only because of the internal shifts that we have made. Because we are the creators of this reality. And so we're not just like plopping into a brand new reality that looks completely different. Although it is a reality that's based more in light and frequency than based on in carbon and elemental density. Like there is a shift in like the vibratory rate. And so but because we are going to be on that higher vibrational plane, we will be interacting with things in the same way that we would be interacting with them in this dimensional plane, if that makes sense. Because like once we're on that plane, it feels the same. It would feel just like the 3D reality feels to us. However, there's going to be more of a brightness, more of a lightness, more of an expansiveness. Things will feel more vivid. Things will look brighter.
So when you go and put gas in the car, is it going to be a different experience, or you're still going to swipe your credit card and put gas in the car? You know what I mean? Like we still have to shop, cook, clean, do the dishes, brush our teeth. We still have to do these things, or don't we?
Let me ask. They're saying you will not have to do these things to the same extent. There will be less of these experiences available as you will be operating from a new level of consciousness that makes it so your reality is shifted to be only that which you enjoy doing. You don't have to continue to follow through on exercises that allow you to bring balance into your reality. Basically, they're saying like things like, because they give me downloads at the same time that I'm channeling them. And they're saying things like filling up your car with gas and like brushing your teeth are things that we have like implemented to maintain like a state of balance. Whereas like we don't, basically they're like, that's not how things run there. Everything is already balanced. And so it's like things are powered differently. I'm getting the sense that we aren't using cars. It feels like there's other modes of transportation that are more energetically aligned, and there are new technologies that will be coming into place, which will likely come through with the interaction with the higher dimensional beings that we will be on the same dimensional plane as, so we'll have better ability to interact with them. So there'll be new technologies coming in. Things like brushing your teeth, it almost feels like that you won't choose for that to be a part of your reality anymore. Like you're just going to always be balanced. You're not going to need to like implement practices to keep yourself in balance. Does that make sense?
Little no.
Okay.
Like how could you like? I mean, I'm not debating. I don't want to debate with fifth dimensional beings, but they're still going to be babies. You have to change your diapers. You got to take care of them. You got to, you know, I don't know. Like it just seems to me just the biological necessity. Even if you go back to ancient Egypt and enlightened society, they had toothbrushes and hairbrushes and makeup and things like that. So it seems like we still have to manifest a three-dimensional way of life. Having said
Well,
that, well, anyway, I'll let you continue with what
I
you're
think
doing.
that's the difference is like there have been enlightened societies on Earth, but the Earth itself hasn't reached a new dimensional plane before. And so the differences that we are going to be experiencing are based on the fact that we are going to be on a version of Earth that itself is enlightened or operating from that baseline level of frequency. So it isn't necessarily just going to be like the spiritual ascension comes first, but then when we have the ability to interact with an external environment that is also operating on that level of frequency, or is operating from that coding. And when I say coding, it just means that the structure of the reality is based in different sacred geometry than ours is currently based in, which allows for like a higher degree of and different kind of manifestation. So let me just ask them about like babies and diapers and stuff. What about that? What about cleaning? I don't know if it's something that we can conceptualize right now. They're like, you're not going to have to worry about it. I was like, what do you mean, though? And they said, you will likely find other ways to extricate such waste materials. So I don't know what that means.
And some will be on the line. All right, here's a meditation for those of you in the collective. We've done this meditation several times. It's called keyword focus, and we did this a couple of sessions ago. It's a two-part meditation. The first is a thought experiment, and then the second is taking that thought experiment and then merging it with our physical, energetic, emotional body. And I want to use the word ascended. And I specifically asked you like to flesh that out a little bit more. Like, what does that mean? A spiritual ascension, a physical difference. And I understand what you're saying. The fifth dimension is more where you're operating through a light structure than through a vibrational, lower vibrational mind structure. You're just operating differently. And the mind stuff, as I try to explain to people, the fifth dimension, it's not the third dimension anymore. It's a different
Yeah.
dimension. The seventh is different than the fifth, etc. They're all different. And so you're operating in a different frequency, and maybe we'll be given different tools that will allow us to travel or navigate our lives at a
Yeah.
different frequency. So I want to first do the thought experiment, and the word that we're going to use is okay. So first of all, just relax. If you're in a spot where you can close your eyes, close your eyes. And notice even with your eyes closed, your awareness, your light is projected outward. It's a subtle thing, but reverse that. Reverse the awareness to inside your own being, and then sink into that inner focus. And just find your diaphragm on the inside and just keep your attention focused on the inside of your being for a few breaths. Now imagine over your head in big letters is the word ascended. We're acting as if ascended. And it's not just a word. It has an essential meaning. It means a lot of different things. It means a heart centering, a your highest authenticity, your alignment, you're releasing, you've already released all the fears and limitations and the density, and those are not even in the word ascended. Ascended is its own much higher energy. We're operating in a frequency of light. We're operating in a frequency that's above what we know now. We ourselves are aligned. We're spending more time in inner alignment. The people we interact with are aligned and heart center. And that's the word ascended. And I want you to imagine it not as a word now, but as an energetic cloud and everything that it means. It has its own essence, its own essential meaning. Now I want you to imagine that energy cloud of the word ascended descending into your own energetic field. And the moment that it starts to interact with your energetic field, you absorb that energy of ascension. And as it lowers, you are that energy. It weaves itself into your energetic pattern, weaves itself into your own emotional patterns. Ascended, and just watch it as it goes down into your own body until it encompasses all of your energy, and your energy and the energy of ascension are now one and the same. And ascension weaves its way into your muscles, your bones, into your cells, into your DNA. You are the energy of ascension. You already are this energy. And just sit with that. Feel that energy circulating through your own energy, through your own emotional body, weaving into your cells and into your DNA. And everything that ascension means is already now in your energetic pattern. You're no different from that energy. That energy is now a part of you. And there we have it.
Beautiful. I love that meditation. I think that that's such a great resource to be able to embody frequency. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You can use any word, but I in the book I use different words in this book. But I was thinking in our conversations, I wonder if we how we can apply that. And I just wanted to flesh it out a little bit so we had a little bit more meaning to it and a little bit more energy to what ascension really is. So we have a kind of a clearer picture in our mind of that energy, and then just
That's so good. Yeah, I love that.
yeah. And now it's part of me. It's part of all of us now. It's just part of you. See, I believe that this doesn't really have to be difficult or take, 20 years. You don't have to learn to speak Sanskrit or read the original. It doesn't take that long. It's just embodying this work, embodying this energy, um, just can happen a lot faster.
Totally. Especially if you're using tools like that and it's like a consistent process of because that's an anchor. Like that's a beautiful anchor to bring yourself back to the frequency that you are uh, not even just trying to manifest, but desiring to show up as. And so even if it feels like you move out of balance from that or you move away from that throughout the day, if you're implementing that kind of practice where you get to, consciously bring yourself in back into that frequency, like that's so helpful.
Yeah. In the book, it's called Meditation for Life. The link is in my profile. But in the book, the very first meditation, this is called keyword focus. You do a thought experiment about a word, you apply energy to it and meaning and essence, and then you merge it with your own energy field. And the very first word that I talk about is patience,
Mm.
because you want to be balanced, but you can't be balanced if you're not patient. And so
Yeah,
patience, starting to look at things in a much longer time cycle, just kind of not demanding answers all the time, being okay with not knowing the answers all the time. Most of the time you don't know the answers. That's okay. You don't have to be in a rush. And so when you start merging that word patience, I know some people on here have been doing that meditation. All of a sudden you'll be driving and you'll want to get ahead of that car. And all of a sudden the word patience, your subconscious now says, hey, well, patience. Or you're talking to your children. And if you're doing this meditation over a period of time, that energy has become you. And now you're talking to your children and you say, well, let me be more patient here.
that's the best too when you start to notice it manifesting in your physical reality. You're like, oh yeah, I have changed my coding or my structuring or my subconscious, because that's what's, creating the manifestation. It's so fun when you
So
start to
now
see.
we all have this ascension energy now encoded, and you do it once, it feels good. You do it twice, it feels good. You do it 3 or 4 times, and you start to become. It's not just a once and done thing. So there you go. There's Christina, a patience bubble over her head all the time. Yep. It's a beautiful thing. So now we have this ascension energy that we've anchored, and we'll keep anchoring it. And I also want you to know that you did a meditation last time about rooting in the bottom and
Hmm.
ascending in the top, and then everything merges in the heart space and the heart space. I've been doing that meditation every day,
Oh,
and
amazing.
it makes a big difference. I told you, like, and I tell everyone, I'm very mind centered, head centered, and I have to think and understand it and analyze it and research it and fix it and correct it, and that's the way I emotionally work. And the challenge in my own journey, and by the way, that's brought me a lot of knowledge and a lot of advancement to my own soul and my own experience. So I'm not saying it's not important, but what I was lacking was this idea of more surrendering, more heart centered, more unity consciousness. And as I told you, you have been an important part on that path, and that's why I'm really happy that our energies are kind of merging now, happily playing together. And I really I didn't really feel the energetic side of myself as way I feel it way more, and it's my path to grow in that area,
Oh,
and
that's so
that's a
amazing.
yeah, surrendering journey for me, and it's really been a blessing. It's been a beautiful thing for me on my journey.
That's so beautiful. I love that so much. And I think that that's because honestly, like I am similar. Like I had to like allow for the surrendering. I had to allow for like the body-based practices. But I started off I mean, I'm still very logical. Very logical. I like to have information, which is why I'm so good at what I do, because I'm like, give me
No,
information.
and then they give it to you, and you say, "I love it when you say, 'What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about?'" I don't, it doesn't, and you make them rephrase it in a way that makes
Exactly.
no sense. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
Exactly. And I feel like, I'm so blessed to like have the access to this and also be like, no, like I need more than that. I need you to give me more information than that, because I'm totally like cognitive in the same way, but it's really about like having the information and then utilizing it to get deep, because it's so funny because when I first started, and a lot of in my sessions, one-on-one sessions with people, it's like I've always said they give very like guidesy answers, but it's like I'm really realizing and sinking into the understanding now, like that's the answer. That's the answer. It's like we're looking for these 3D, very human ways to like interact with the external environment, and the guides have always been they've always said like, no, you need to focus on what's going on in here, and it's not for some fluffy reason. It's like, no, that's how you ascend. That's how you get out of the problem that you're posing to us. And we just think that it has to be harder or more, there has to be an external thing for us to interact with. But it's like every single time it's like, no, it's not. You have to turn back around. But so yeah, it's a process that I feel like all of us are going through, because I mean, obviously some people are more rooted in more of the body-based stuff, and some people are rooted in more of the mind-based stuff, but it's coming to a balance, because you can't be too far in one direction or the other. You have to find that happy medium in between. And people say like this ascension process it's about like bringing like feminine energy back into the systems, and all that really means is like being heart centered, and and like being more sensation focused, like attuning back to the body, attuning back to the cycles of our own personal cycles as well as like external cycles. And so it's not about like male versus female. It's about like all of us kind of moving from a societal conditioning that is more cognitive, that is more logical, that is more structured, and bringing in more of the balance. Because obviously we still need these things. It's not that there's nothing wrong with these things. They're needed. And like you said, like they've gotten us far. Like at a certain point in the journey, though, you realize that you can't go any further with it. And I think that that's the point where like the switch flipped for me. And I don't know about you, but it was like, okay, I've gone as far as I can being, very information focused and cognitive. Now I have to flip it back around and be like, okay, I have to do all the things that I've been ignoring out of whatever programming that is. And I think that that's the journey that all of us are on, regardless of which direction you're coming to it from.
Yeah, you need the balance of both, the interplay of yin and yang, the interplay of male and female, surrender and action. There's
Yeah.
no surrender without action. There's no action without surrender. I guess you can act without surrender. I guess that's what we have now. That's the world we have now. And I want to just tell everyone out there, if you're here, if you're listening to this, have already opened yourself up to these higher dimensional teachings. You're well on the path. I say this all the time. If enlightenment were a mountain, you'd be shocked at how close you are to the top. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to take, a million years or even the rest of your life. And, this is the point. You already have all the information that you need. You have all the external information that you need. Now you just need to put it in practice. And many of you are. I know for a fact, many of the people listening, I see some of the names here, you are putting this into practice. And I know a lot of people are following you, Taegan, are putting it into practice. But those of you that aren't, I don't know what you're waiting for. Just establish a morning routine where you anchor yourself in alignment, then meditation, stretching, breathing, and an evening routine where you anchor yourself. Just do the best you can as you can right now in your current environment. That's how you start on the path. And as I say, once you latch on to this meditation habit, don't drift away from it. Don't let it go. It's really important. Your mind is gonna say, "Oh, I don't need to do it today." Just stop, because once you go 2 or 3 weeks without it, you've lost it. You want to hang on to these practices. And if you have this idea of surrender and alignment, hang on to that. Don't just say, "Yeah, that was good, but I don't do it anymore." These are things you can't let go of. Once you do the effort and you figure out what works for you, and you're holding on to something that's making you feel balanced and aligned, don't let it drift away. Have the self-discipline to keep it up until it becomes a habit, and then it weaves itself into just that's who you are now. You're just a meditator. You're doing the inner work. You wouldn't be any other way. In the beginning, it's hard because you are another way. You're trying to transform yourself. But once you get over the hump on the transformation, that's it. Now it's part of you. So don't wait for anybody. Just let's go. Let's go. It's go time.
It's go time.
It's go time for us personally. I also want to say one other thing too, because there are two words that seem to be related, and I want to pull them apart a little bit. One is patience, and one is surrender.
Hmm.
And I want to just like have that conversation. Surrender to me is just like kind of laying back and just allowing the universe to pulse through you and just feeling it, and whatever happens is fine. And just like, blissing in the experience, just surrendering, not trying, not making an effort. And patience is similar. You're not trying, you're not making an effort, but patience is you're more clear and aware and ready to take action when it's time to take action. As opposed, in other words, you're patiently waiting for the aligned thing for me to do. As opposed to surrender is I don't really have to do anything. And I've really been pondering this, patience versus surrender, because I've been really good at developing patience in myself. But what you've taught me and others like you have taught me is this surrendering thing is also important. So there are two different things. Like, for example, the Chinese culture was very much about patience. Just watch, don't say a lot, and when it's time to move, move. Very limited action, but very effective action because you're patient. You're using the power of time to create new opportunities for you, as opposed to trying to create new opportunities for yourself. You're just patiently waiting. Surrender is a little bit different. Surrender is more of a much more of an inner. It's less clarity about where you are and what it's time to do, and more just like blissing and surrendering and just like letting go of the efforts. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is a very subtle difference between those two energies. I would say with patience, there is a particular outcome or goal that you have in mind or that you see in the distance that you are patiently, like kind of waiting for to come into fruition. You're waiting for that opportunity. You're waiting for the appropriate timing.
And you're not demanding that it happen right now.
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
trying to make it or not demanding. You're just waiting, watching and
Exactly. And
waiting.
with surrender, I would say that there's no expectation of what the thing is that's going to come in. With patience, it feels like you have an idea of what the thing is that you're waiting to come in, and you're allowing for the space to allow for the timing for the thing. Whereas surrender, I don't know if I would say that surrender is completely detached from action. I just think that surrender has more of a detachment from outcome and expectation. And it still has the feeling to me, like the connotation for me is like, it has more of a sit back and trust. And like when and if something comes in, you will still like take that action on it, but you aren't exerting any energy toward it. Like you are allowing whatever it is to come into you in divine timing without even really trying to guess about what the thing is. It's more about like a trust in the unfolding of the universe and the unfolding of life and the flow of source, knowing that whatever is for you is going to come to you and you don't need to like put any effort into trying to make it happen. So I think that it's a little bit of a difference between the things that we are like actively trying to pursue and manifest. But even with surrender, it's like there are things that we want. Say, I'll say an example for surrender. Because I mean, you could be patient in this situation as well, but I almost feel like having a degree of like patience in feeling like, you know, this thing is coming, but I don't quite have it, might create resistance, whereas surrender is allowing you to completely let go of resistance. So for example, I'll do like, say you're waiting for like a relationship to come in. You're like waiting for like a soulmate relationship to come in. You can, like be really like patient, and then like when people are coming in, you put action forward. But it still to me feels like there's like some kind of resistance in that, whereas surrender, it's like I completely give this up. I completely give up like trying to like actively pursue anything here, and I'm just going to sit back and just allow for the flow to occur, and something will come into my field when it's time. I don't have to actively
Or
pursue
not,
that.
or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. Like if you're a parent, patience is being patient with your kids. They're just little kids. What I try to explain to people as a grandparent is you haven't even begun to have fun yet. Wait till your kids get older and they have kids. Your children are going to be part of your life forever. And when you get mad at them all the time, or you withdraw from them, or they withdraw for you because there's no trust relationship, you're ruining your whole future. Like there's not going to be that relationship in the future. So you got to be really, really, really patient with your children, but you can't just surrender the situation and let them do whatever they want because as a parent, that's I guess this is what I think about three-dimensional life. As a parent, you have to take action. Like you're
Yeah.
responsible for them. You have to get them dressed. You have to make sure they have food. Yeah, you've gotta provide the structure for them. But you can do it in a patient way and be very, very patient with them. But you can't really surrender, which a lot of parents have just bailed out. They just, I give up. Like you kids do whatever you want. And you're surrendering. It's almost like you're like surrendering. I give up, like you're in a fight and I surrender, but it's not like that. I just think these two energies are very close, but one is more, I'm on task, but I'm going to be really patient with this task. Like I just started a business, but I'm not going to demand that I don't have any demand. I'm just going to watch what happens and be patient, 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 and let the business grow. As opposed to surrendering is, I don't start a business because I'm just surrendering and whatever happens, happens. And you know what I mean? Like I just feel like surrendering is almost like surrendering. Like I give up, like I'm out. I'm checking out, but it's different in a spiritual sense.
And I feel like the childhood or child rearing is like a fantastic example, because there are certain things that you can have patience for, and there are certain things that you surrender. So for example, like you have, for the things that you have like direct control over, or the things that you are interacting with in the physical, in the now, like you have patience over those things. You have to have patience for how you're showing up for your children. The things that you surrender are more like, who is this person going to be past my care? Like the things that you have no control over, those are the things that you surrender and you trust. But the things that you are interacting with and you have the ability to have some kind of influence over, and recognizing the difference between the two, because sometimes we think that we can have influence when we don't, and when we need to be surrendered, especially with, in that context where it's like, okay, that's like an autonomy thing, that's an individualization thing, like let them be their own person. But like as through like the child rearing process, it's very, yeah, you're 100% right, like there's a lot of patience required, there's lots and lots of patience required, and that's a lot of the kind of like immediate stuff that allows you to be able to show up better in the interim, and not impose so much control
So I'm thinking like surrender, almost like a negative thing. So I think about it in finance too. Like you have patience, just put a little bit in and save it, and just patience, and it'll grow over many, many years. Just be very, very patient as an investor or a saver, right? Or I just surrender my finances. Like I can't handle this. I don't want to. It's like I can't handle it. I don't want to do it, and I give up. And I think a lot of people have given up on parenting. They've given up on their finances. They've given up on their spiritual. Like I just give up. Like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, or it's too frustrating, or and they just surrender. But I think they're like tools that you have to know how to use. Like you said, there are certain things as a parent you have to be patient about, and there are other things like whether they're going to love baseball like I love baseball. You can't push that on them. You just have to surrender and let them grow up and be the person they want to be.
And even with the example of finances, because I don't feel like surrender is just doing nothing. I think surrender still requires action. And so with patience, yeah, it's okay. So with your example, okay, you're putting money away and you're being patient and in it growing over time. Okay, for example, like what if you put money in like stocks and you're like patiently waiting for things to like grow and grow and grow, but then the surrender piece would be like you're surrendered in the expectation that they are going to grow to like a certain limit. You are surrendered in, regardless of what happens with that stock, like you're going to be okay. So there is like a detachment with surrender, but it's not a complete detachment from action. It's a detachment from outcome.
From outcome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like what you said earlier, because patience, there's an implied outcome, and you're just being very patient. You're not charging full speed and messing yourself up in pursuit of this goal. You're just waiting patiently, smartly, acting now, not acting, waiting again. You have patience to watch. A good corporation has a 10-year plan and a 30-year plan. So a corporation runs with patience, not surrender, patience, and then daily action. I like that. The difference between having a goal and letting go of a goal, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
I like that.
It's helpful. I like those two words. Well, that's really we're at 90 minutes, which is always my time limit. Um, any other thoughts, Tegan? First of all, thank you again for sharing yourself so openly and generously. I love it. I know people on here are really appreciating it. And hopefully we'll
Thank you
do
for
it
having
again.
me on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully
I appreciate
we'll
it.
do it again. Do you have any last thoughts or announcements that you want to make? And I'll do the
I
same.
will. I mean, I'll just kind of reiterate some of the things that I have going on. So, I actually am doing a retreat in Egypt at the end of January for the individuals that are interested in that. The information for that is available through the link in my bio. If you want to be more involved with me and my collective, I do a lot of stuff on Patreon. There's 2 longer videos per week, and there's also different tiers where I do a monthly teaching. So that's one of the tiers, and then there's also a monthly live month ahead prediction for each month from on my Patreon as well. So you can definitely interact with me more there. All of my information is available through the link in my bio, and the Mystery School of the Living Earth is now open for enrollment, which is all about utilizing the Earth energies, getting connected back with the Gaian consciousness, and all of that.
Beautiful. So, and someone or Tegan, go ahead and write your TikTok handle. and make sure that everyone is following you. For me, I recently started the Utopia Collective. We've got a newsletter. I'm pointing up to the air, up to that little cloud up there. The first link in the bio will get you into the collective, will get you the newsletter, and the newsletter is not going to hurt you. It's just when you open it, you'll click it and it'll say, "Hey, everything's going just fine. The universe is great. Be patient. Here's, take a breath." And then we're going to talk about, we do a weekly meditation class on Friday afternoons where we do a deep dive into various meditation techniques. And then every Tuesday, which is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern, I do what I call an Ascension workshop where we're talking about higher dimensional teachings, which I don't teach on TikTok. I only teach that to members of the collective. I've set that boundary for myself, where that's a boundary that I've set for myself, that honor my own boundary there. So for anyone who's interested in participating in the collective, also, as we talked about, there's some other links in there. The book Cycle of Mind, highly recommend. Meditation for Life. This is what we talk about every Friday afternoon. Anyway, a lot of things going on. Join the collective. Make sure you're following Taegan. And that's it. So thank you all. Oh, let me answer your question there, John. The cycle of mind is different. The QR codes are in the meditation book where you can actually QR code the meditation, listen to it in real time, and then journal about the experience. Cycle of mind doesn't have related. I'm sorry if that if that was confusing, John. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Love you all. Thank you, Taegan. Fantastic. We'll be
Awesome.
in
Have a
touch.
beautiful rest of the day, everybody.